It's been a while since I've done a video specifically about a question that one of you guys asked, and I'll put it right here, maybe even up here for you guys from Will I7I. He says, "Thank you so much. I'm starting this business now. Do you suggest any considerations when doing a business plan in this field?" And of course, if you've been watching the channel for longer than a minute, and you've seen, of course, we got hundreds of videos on here. I do talk about this a lot, and I mention a lot that I don't necessarily, after going through the entire startup phase of starting a pest control business, I don't really care for the whole business plan. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you want to have some plan about how are we going to get customers, what advertising are we going to do, what are we going to do in terms of SEO. Like I always mention, if I knew what I know today, starting a pest control business almost 5 years ago now, I would be so much further ahead. I'd be getting a lot more organic leads. I wouldn't have been paying so much for Google local service ads. I probably would be because, if you got all those organic leads coming in, then you can pay even more for customer acquisition. But in terms of an overall business plan, I would say that is solely what you need to focus on whenever you're first getting started is simply how are we going to get the phone ringing? How are we going to get our first 100 customers? How are we going to make our first $100,000? Because like we talked about in a previous video a year or two ago, business is really just beginning at six figures. A lot of people have seen my video about how I grew my pest control business from 0 to 6 figures in my first year. It's got like 11,000 views now over the last few years. But the thing is like I never really posted that as like, being proud or excited. Like, of course, like I'm excited from the standpoint of what I'm doing is working. But you guys know I mention very often on this channel that like, it's so easy to make a mistake. And all it takes is one mistake to cost you a year's worth of growth or half a year worth of growth. So again, my entire point with like an actual business plan is my business plan would be, how are we going to get customers? How are we going to get the phone ringing? Are we going to rely solely on our Google business profile? Are we going to rely solely on our website? I never like relying on anything solely, which is why as soon as our Google local services started to dry up in a period of like 1 to 2 months, I shifted immediately over to, okay, how are we going to get website traffic? How are we going to get social media traffic? How are we going to get traffic from our Google business profile? How are we going to get more referrals? How are we going to cold call? Who are we going to cold call? What's our cold call script going to be like? Like there's so many variables and so many different ways you can go about getting customers at the end of the day, but you have to focus on how are we going to do it? What actions are we going to do? What standard operating procedure for cold calling or knocking on doors or whatever the case may be that you feel like you need to do to go get that first 100 customers, 200 customers, 500 customers, get a full route going. And then lastly, like I said, that is the main part, of course, getting customers, getting your first 6-figure year, all that type of stuff. But the other thing I would say too is figure out how long can I afford to stay small? One thing that I don't necessarily regret doing, but I always wonder what if we hadn't done this is one, obviously moving into the home that we were in for over a year last year, but then also having my wife quit her job when we did. Now, you guys know I mentioned in a previous stream or video that she's actually started her own business now too, and that's awesome. But I always wonder in the back of my head, how much would it have changed our situation? How much would it have changed my business over the last few years if we had delayed when she became a stay-at-home mom by, say, 2 years or 3 years, or even if she's still working right now? Because yes, to a degree, that has definitely strained me, strained the business in terms of, obviously, we have our personal expenses. I pay about $5,000 to $6,000 a month just to keep our household afloat. So that only leaves me with a few $1,000s or so per month to grow the business. And that doesn't include, obviously, all the expenses that go just into the day-to-day, chemical, fuel, tires, the average wear and tear on your vehicle and your equipment, and having to repair the flow zone. Like by the time we end up covering just our personal expenses and we cover the basic business expenses, there's some months where there's just not a lot of wiggle room there to expand the marketing efforts. Hence why there's some months we go full pedal to the metal on Google Ads, but then there's other months where we just got to pull back because I don't like to operate on hardly any debt. And I mean, I could make this video an hour long or even more of just every single little mistake, but that's the whole thing with this entrepreneurial journey, guys, especially, if you're starting any type of business, service business, pest control, HVAC, software, any type of business you're going to start. When it's your first business, or even if it's not your first business, it's your first time doing this type of business, you're going to make mistakes. Without making mistakes, you're not going to be able to learn anything. The main thing though, whenever you make those mistakes, is to make sure you only make those mistakes once. If you're the type of person that makes the same mistake like over and over and over again, unfortunately, I don't think business is going to be for you. Like, I get burnt once and usually I don't do it again. And then if I do it again and I get burnt twice, I'm like, wow, you really were stupid that time. And then we make sure, of course, to mark that as never, ever, ever do that again, right? It seems simple, but I hear and see every day so many people like making the same mistakes or asking the same question that they already got an answer to, but they didn't like the answer, so they're asking it again to see if somebody will maybe give them the answer that they were wanting. Like, at the end of the day, there is multiple right ways to go about doing all sorts of stuff in business, but there's also 10 times as many ways to be wrong about doing something in business. So like I said, can't stress enough, decision making is of utmost importance. Hopefully that did kind of answer your question. If you want me to expand on it, or if you want to expand on your question there, let me know down in the comments down below. Or if any of you guys have questions you want me to do a quick little video for you guys over as well, let me know. I'm trying to do more of these for you guys where I answer your questions either in shorts or a shorter video format, quick little 5 to 10 minute hitter for you guys. And hopefully you all did enjoy the video or learn something. If you did, do me a favor, of course, and smash that thumbs up button. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so down below or right here. And then, of course, I have other helpful videos to help you start and grow your pest control business this year.